All right, welcome back to Adobe Photoshop. Today we're going to try something just a little bit different. We're going to do two different things. One, Adobe released a new version of Adobe Photoshop and they added some new additions to the frame tool. So I'm going to show you what those are because I'm going to be using the frame tool in creating a template. So I'm working on creating a website for a new t-shirt design company. And I'm going to create a graphic, and I'm going to use this graphic in both Instagram, social media, and on the website to display items. So today I'm going to show you how to create a template so there's that consistency and ease when working with multiple different items when working in Adobe Photoshop. So let's slide on over to Adobe Photoshop and take a look. So this is what the template is going to look like that we're going to create today. So the first thing we need to do is to create a new file. So what we're going to do is go up here to File, and we're going to come down here to where it says New. So right there is New. We're going to hit New, and this opens up. Now, I've already created this. The pixel size is 3000 by 2400. But the trick here is we want it to be in the ratio of 4:5. So what I did is I actually made the width 4, height 5, and I made the resolution really high, which is 600, but that's okay because I'm actually more interested in the pixel dimension than I am anything else. So I needed that to be high so we can get at least 3000 pixels. Now using this on social media or a website, we're never gonna size it at 3000 pixels. I'd rather have a larger size because it's easy to scale down. However, you can't really scale up and keep that same quality. So we're going to go ahead and save this. One key thing here is our background is going to be transparent. So we're going to go ahead and hit create. And so transparency is shown in Photoshop by these white and gray squares. Now the trick to doing layouts is a few things. The first thing we want to do is set guidelines. And so I'll show you what a guideline is, and then I'm going to show you how to use a guide layout. Another key trick is we want the lines that we lay out to snap to the guide. So with the rulers open, and it looks like I have mine in inches now, sometimes it's in pixels, whatever you set in Photoshop for your default dimension, you're gonna see here. If you don't have the rulers, it's Command or Control R. See, they're gone, Command or Control R, and they're back. To get a guideline is actually simple. You just go up into the ruler up here, left click and drag down, and you get these lines. So if you've ever accidentally got one before, that's a guideline, this little cyan line. Now, we don't want the guideline there. So to get rid of the guideline, you must go over here to the Move tool, click on the Move tool, and then you get that little symbol. That little symbol right there will let you grab the guide and move it. We're just gonna take it out and it's gone. Today, we're going to create what's called a guide layout. And a guide layout is going to make sure that everything is symmetrical and laid out in the correct order. To do that, you're going to come up here to View, click on View, and you're going to drop down. And the first thing actually we want to do is make sure in Snap 2 that guides, layers, and document bounds are all checked because we want everything to snap. So to create a guide layout, we're going to simply come up here to View, and we're going to go down here to Guides, and we're going to go down to New Guide Layout. And that's going to give us the option here to create what's called a guide layout. Now I'm going to click this and hit Clear Existing Guides, so anything that was on there wouldn't be there. And the first thing we're going to do is notice down here, we have the margin, and I want a 1/4 inch the whole way around. So I've got different margins. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change all of this to 2.5, 5, 2.5. All right, cool. So I've got 1/4 inch margins the whole way around. Looks like we got a 4 in there. We don't want that. And so now you can see we've got that perfect 1/4 inch margin around there. Now, right now we have this set to 3 columns. So if you look at this, there's one column here, one column here, and one column here. And we see these little lines right here that are dividing it. In this case, we have a row, a row, a row, and there's no space in between there. If we want space in between, I'll just put 100 pixels, hit return. And you can see now we have a row, and then we have a gutter of 100 pixels and a gutter of 100 pixels in this image. So I'm just going to hit Command Z to undo that. And we're going to go back to View, go back to View, go down to Guides and New Guide Layout. In this case, I don't want a gutter, so we're going to go ahead and delete that. I'm going to click OK. And we're actually not going to use 3 different columns, but there's going to be a circle in the middle of this. And I want to use this column here to use that for the layout. So we're going to go ahead and hit OK. That's all we need here. So the first thing we're going to take a look at down here is the Ellipse tool. And so the Ellipse tool is nested with the rectangle tool, ellipse tool, triangle, polygonal tool, line tool, custom shape tool. We want the Ellipse tool, which essentially is going to make a round circle. Now I'm going to come up right here to where these 2 crosshairs intersect. And I'm going to hold my shift key when I do this. The reason you hold your shift key is because it's going to keep this a perfect circle. If I didn't, it would make it an ellipse. And I'm going to drag and draw this until that line touches the other line. And you'll see it snaps. And in the center is a pink line telling me that it's perfectly centered. So I'm going to let go of that and we are done. Now, I have this set up already. So this color here in the center is a fill color, all right? And so the fill color for the shape is here. We can click on that and we can change this to any color that we want. We can make it orange. That's actually going to be the color of it. And over here we have the stroke, and the stroke is this. So if I come in here and I make this stroke smaller, you're going to see that gray stroke around the circle changes its size, all right? Also, notice that when it created this, it's creating part of it on the inside of where the column line is, and part of it's going to the outside of that line. So in this case, I'm okay if that goes outside of that area a little bit, but you could resize this to make it fit. I'm not exactly sure the thickness of this border yet. I think the border for this line is still going to be a little bit too small. So we're going to make this 75 and hit return and see if that's good. We can always go back and change this. Now, the next thing that we have is I'm going to draw a guideline down because it's already showing me exactly where the center mark is on that circle, because I'm going to create a square, or really a rectangle, and I want it to start here and go through the center of this object. So to do that, we're simply going to come down here and we're going to click here and we're going to go to now the rectangle tool. And we're going to come over here to the guidelines that we created. So this is where our margin is. And I'm going to left click and drag, and we're going to create a rectangle that goes all the way to the edge of our margins. And when you do this, you'll notice that it snaps right to the edge there. Now, in this case, I don't want this framed border. So we're going to change a couple of things. First of all, I want the fill color to be this gray color. All right. And I think it is this color right here. All right. If I didn't, I could come in here and click this, and that's correct. The color that I want is 24, 24, 24. So I'm going to hit OK. That's the color that I want. Now, I do not want a stroke. So I'm going to come up here to where we see stroke, and I'm going to click that. I'm going to go over here to the little red line, and that's saying, hey, we don't want a stroke. So now we have this rectangle. However, I want my rectangle to have radiused edges. So that's when we come on over here to the properties panel. And inside of the properties panel, you'll notice we've got this little symbol here that shows a radius. So I'm going to go in here and I'm going to type 150, and we will hit return. And you can see that radius at 150 pixels. Let's see what 200 pixels looks like. So we'll do 200, return. All right. And I have this linked right here. If I had it unlinked, we could make these independent. So let's try that. I think that looks pretty good. Now, what I'm seeing is I have this ellipse circle right here, and it looks to be a little bit too small. So I'm going to increase this. And the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to hold the shift and the option on a Mac, or the shift and the alt on a PC. That's going to make, when I pull an edge, each edge go out equidistant, so this stays centered in the object. So we're going to take this and just drag it out until it gets close to the top up there. And we're going to, okay. It's a little bit too big, so I'm going to reduce it down. Reduce it down a little bit more. And I think I'm going to bring this up to 100 pixels. So we're going to type in 100 up here and hit return and just make that border a little bit bigger. So that looks pretty good right now. Now the issue is I'm going to fill this circle here using the frame tool. However, it is below the rectangle. So I'm going to drag this and put it above it, because otherwise this would cover it because this was on top. We want this below it. So that looks good. So now we've got this round circle here and everything looks pretty good. So the next step here is we're going to break out the frame tool. And by creating a frame, it lets you kind of drag or drop an object directly into the frame. And this is great for creating any sort of layout within Adobe Photoshop. However, they've upgraded the frame tool and added more things to it so that we have more options. So what we need to do now is I need to actually create a frame that's exactly the size of that orange circle, because that's where I'm going to drag and drop my logo into. Now, I could do the exact same thing by just selecting that orange area and copy and pasting the logo into that selection, because that area of the template isn't going to change, but might as well show you how to use the frame tool. Right here is that frame tool, all right? If you click on the frame tool, I've always had up here the kind of square rectangle and the circle, but now we have the ability to create a triangle, and this is a custom shape. The way this works is we're going to grab the circle and I'm going to come up to, this is the very top of my image, right up here. Now, the reason I'm grabbing this right here at the top, and if you want to make sure this is exactly at the top, I'm going to show you a little trick. So we're going to go to View, and we're going to go down here to Guides, and we're going to go to New Guide, and we're going to create a new guide. However, I want this guide to be right in the center vertically. So we want to make sure vertical is selected, and we're actually going to type 50 and then %. And that is going to put a guide right smack in the middle. So the trick here is if I tried to create a circle by starting over here and dragging, it's going to be really difficult to get the exact size. I'm actually going to create my frame circle by dragging and lining up from the top and the bottom of this circle and then dragging it over. So we've got the circle selected. Once again, I'm going to be holding that shift key. I'm going to go up here to right where the center of this circle starts. I'm going to hold shift, left click, and drag. And you can see I'm dragging down until the bottom of that line hits the bottom of my circle, which is exactly what I want. All right, this one is a little off, so we need to go up. It's pretty good. So it looks like this circle and this circle are exactly the same. So I'm going to grab the move tool and I'm going to hold shift and drag the frame over until it snaps right there in the center. Now you can see there's a pink line right in the middle of my frame and one going horizontal. That's telling me I have it perfectly centered. So I'm going to let go of my left click and then let go of this shift. And now this frame tool has created this circle exactly the same size and location of this orange circle. So the next thing we need to do is we're just going to go ahead and drop that logo in. So I'm going to go into my Finder. This is just the easiest ways we can. And I probably should have saved this template after I did a little bit, but we'll save it after this. So right here's my logo. I'm simply just going to drag it over here on top of the frame tool and boom, just like that, it's added that frame perfectly in that location. So let's go ahead and save this so we don't lose anything. T Lab Designs Frame Template. And I'm going to save this as a PSD file so it's editable. I like PSD instead of Photoshop. Into that same templates location. And we're good. So now we have our logo and we've done it. Now, if you ever wanted to change the image, you could easily just drag in a new image and it would replace it inside of that frame. So the next thing that we're going to create is a square, and we're going to use the frame template to create that square. And this is going to allow me to drop in the different t-shirt products into that location and use the same template over and over and over again. How can we do that? Well, we can grab the frame tool just like we did before. And in this case, we're going to grab the square. But before we do that, I'm just going to show you what this looks like. So this is the triangle tool. We can come in here and draw this. Now it draws it as a square, but then it creates a triangle here. So this is the triangle that you would use. If you imported an image, it would go into the triangle. So we'll just hit escape, undo that. Right here, we have custom shapes. And if we click on the custom shapes, it gives us our shapes. And then we can come right here to that little drop down arrow and basically select anything in our custom shapes. So in this case, it looks like it's got an animal. I can come in here. I'm going to hold shift when I do this. I'm going to drag a circle, and then you notice it's created like this lion or tiger shape. Well, we can then import the image into the lion or tiger shape, which is definitely not what I want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Command Z and undo that. In my case, I just want a square. So I'm going to come out here, and I don't really know exactly how big I'm going to make this. So I'm just going to guess. We can easily align this later. So we're going to hold the shift key. We're going to drag this. This is going to create a perfect square. Now, one trick is make sure you let go of the left click and then the shift. Because if you don't, sometimes it skews it. And then we're going to just drag this, and you can see that pink lines telling me that I'm lined up. I'm going to go up a little bit. That looks pretty good. Look, I could come in here and use some guidelines to do this, but I think that's going to look pretty good. So this is our frame tool, and this is going to allow us now to drop different images into that frame. So this is actually finished. So I'm going to hit Command S, which is save, to resave finished template. And now what I'll do is I'll go back to that file, and right here, it looks like I've got an image. I'm going to come and I'm going to drag this in and drop it. Just like that, the product's been dropped into the image. We've got all these crazy annoying lines. I understand that, but this is ready to go. And if I want to create another one, I just take a different image. I drop it into the same location. It will remove the old one, put in the new one. Done. So if these lines that we have up here completely annoy you, like they are annoying me at this time, what we're going to do is it's really easy to remove the guidelines. You could simply come up here to View, Guides, right? Or the easier way is just and semicolon, and that gets rid of those guidelines. Now we're still seeing the frames here. This isn't going to show up on our image. And if you wanted to resize this image within this frame, you could simply hit Command T, you'd get the transform box, and this would allow you to scale or adjust that within the image. So if I wanted to make this bigger, I could come in here and simply just make this bigger. And then that fits that frame a little bit more. I can also move it if I want. That looks pretty good. Hit return, and boom, we're good to go. So the last thing here to do is, this is a large file size, and if I'm going to put this on a website or use this for social media, it's way too big. So I'm going to go through the saving process here. We basically have two options, and I'll explain what those do. So the first thing that we have here is we're going to resize this. And so I'm going to go up here to image and go to image size. And look, normally I would have an action for this. So I just click a button and it's done, but I'm going to show you manually what it does. So I'm going to make this 1,440 pixels height, and we're going to go ahead and hit OK. So that's going to resize it that direction. And then we're going to come up here and go to Edit, Convert to Color Profile. And we're going to change this to sRGB because the color profile on the web is sRGB. So we want to go ahead and do that. Now, make sure that Flatten Image to Preserve Appearance is not checked. We don't want that because we actually, in this case, want to keep the transparency. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And I'm going to put Don't Rasterize. We're good to go. Last thing is to go ahead and save this out. Now, you have two options when saving something with transparency. One is PNG, and the new one is WebP. So I'm going to put this on my website, and WebP is a much smaller file size with exceptional quality. So I'm going to show you how to save this as a WebP image. I'm going to change Photoshop all the way down here to WebP. Now, the reason I could do save as is because I've changed to the old version. Otherwise, you would need to do save a copy to get WebP up. So we're going to hit WebP. We're going to call this photo shirt. And we're going to go ahead and hit save. Now, I want to do this as lossy And I'm going to bring this down to about 85%. I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. One thing I want to show you here is when I did create this, because I enlarged this, the gap here and the gap here is a little bit different. So before I save this out, I just want everybody to know that I did shift this down. The margins that I need are not pertinent, but I do want the design centered so that when I place it into locations, we don't have a larger gap here than at the top. And that's really easy to do. I'm going to hit Command semicolon again to get my guides back, even though I don't really need them. And then you just want to make sure everything over here is selected. So I'm going to hold Shift, select everything, and then I'm just simply going to nudge everything down. And I can either use the nudge tool or I can just drag this down. And you can see that we're getting those pink lines in the center. That's telling me that this is perfectly centered vertically and horizontally. So this is my web saved image, and I brought this up just to show you that all those crazy little funky frames that everybody saw don't actually show up in the final image. So this is the final image ready for upload. And this image is ready to put on a website. Hey, if you're looking for a photography t-shirt design, I'm going to have a whole photography collection, and that should be live here within the next month or so. So hopefully you have found this video helpful. If you have any comments or questions, you can always leave those below. Don't forget to subscribe and have an absolutely wonderful day.